Today I realized that I was remiss in doing something I should have done right up front, and that is trying to give you guys a blow-by-blow, detailed description of what we do. So here goes. Alright, wake up, eat breakfast, then pull out this list of lakes that I've set aside, that I've identified to be surveyed. Look at which ones you're near. Look at the list also to find out what needs to be done in each one, whether it's an algae survey or an invert survey or some other bizarre thing, like taking nutrient samples, collecting tadpole pee. Look at the map, find out where those lakes are, and plan out your route for the day. See how many lakes you think you can get done. Pack your lunch, pack a day pack, and start hiking. That hike could be anywhere from 5 minutes to the nearest lake to 3 hours. So once you arrive at the lake, first step, pull out the dry bag. What? Dry bag? Yeah. We disinfect a bunch of our gear between every lake that we survey so as not to spread the amphibian chytrid fungus, which is spreading wildly throughout populations of mountain yellow-legged frogs throughout the Sierra. So we use a dry bag and we fill it with a bunch of water, about 3 liters, and then add quaternary ammonia, which is pretty poisonous stuff. Throw your stuff in there, your sandals, your invert net for 5 minutes, and in the meantime, while you're letting that soak, pull out your algae survey gear. This gear consists of 2 syringes, 1 big syringe with the end cut off, and the plunger on the inside rotates, and there's a toothbrush attached to the end, and then a tube running through the back end of it that you can suck algae sample out with after scrubbing it off the rock. We've also got a smaller syringe that you use to do that sucking, and we try to disinfect these too using 70% ethanol that we mix up and then squirt onto them using a spritzer bottle that we carry around with us. Just your standard garden store spritzer bottle. Nothing special. Pretty light, actually. Alright, so your gear's disinfected. Pull out your field notebook. It's a little yellow, sort of 4x6 wire notebook with Write in the Rain paper in it, which means you can get it pretty darn wet and it still works. Pull out your Write in the Rain pen. This is just a different version of those space pens that were pretty popular, 80s, 90s. Looked like little silver suppositories. And I've got one, they're cool, but I've also got a bunch of these Write in the Rain pens, and they work well with the Write in the Rain paper. So you're going to write down a bunch of data about the lake you're at, what the conditions are like, what you're going to do, and you're also going to write down some things about, if you're doing an algae survey, where you're going to do it. And we use our stopwatches to create random numbers that we can use to find points along the shoreline. Or you're going to pick out the substrates that are in the lake, and you're going to write those down, and then that's going to dictate where you do your invert surveys. So all this has gone into the notebook, and you're going to start one of your surveys now. Let's say you're going to do your invert survey first. So you've got your list of substrates written down. These could be cobble, gravel, sand, silt, bedrock, boulders, and vegetation. And they're represented in some various proportion of each. Put your sandals on, grab your invert net, and this is a net with a handle that's about 1.5 meters, and then there's a D-net on the end of it, and it has a fine mesh net bag that was custom made. It's reinforced to withstand the rears of dragging across granite all summer for several summers in a row. And now you're going to start walking around the shoreline looking for those different pieces of substrate. And when you find them, you're going to walk into the water. And our goal is to do our samples at 0.5 meter to a full meter deep. And this is what's defined as the littoral zone, the first 1 meter of depth of the shoreline of a lake. And that's the community that we're trying to sample. So we're trying to go between 0.5 meter and 1 meter. And we've got a 1 meter line painted on the handle of the invert net so we can remember what's a meter. Also, for me, I'm 5'11", my legs are long, my torso's short. 1 meter is the iliac crest of my hips, so I can remember that too.
Still do.
Wade out into the water to the substrate you've identified that you're going to sample,
Yep.
and you do a 1 meter sweep of the net across the substrate.
Yeah,
So you put the net in, and it's got a flat edge, and you drag that across the substrate. And as you're dragging, you're stirring up all sorts of muck, but you're also stirring up all sorts of invertebrates, and they're swimming about, and they end up in the net. You repeat this 15 times for the various different ratios of substrates. So maybe you do 5 on cobble, 5 on gravel, and 5 on boulders. So now the trick is, you've got this huge glop of stuff, a mixture of invertebrates and silt and sediment and maybe some plant life and who the heck knows what else in the bottom of your net. And you got to get the invertebrates out of that and not too much else. What I usually do first is place the whole glop into a tray. And this is sort of your standard, it's like an 8-inch by 6-inch Tupperware style tray that you can put leftovers in. And we carry these around in the backcountry. So just plop the whole thing in there. Then I pour a bunch of water in there, and anything that can swim will swim. So you've got things like aquatic beetles and mayfly larvae, an organism called Cialis, also known as an alderfly, maybe some carixids, some water boatmen, maybe some dragonfly or damselfly nymphs, a lot of other really tiny things. But we want to get all those things that swim out, so basically I pick up the tray and pour it back through the net. All the things that can swim end up in the net, and hopefully all the sediment stays in the tray. That makes it really easy to then scoop all those inverts out, put them into a bottle of 70% ethanol. I repeat that, the pouring and sieving and pouring and sieving and pouring and sieving of inverts until all the swimming things are gone and preserved in my bottle. Now it's time to attack the gloppy sediment. Find a nice flat rock, hopefully in the sun, relatively smooth, that you can lie on, and get your face really close to it. So we're talking about looking for things called chironomids or midge larvae, and we're also looking for some aquatic mites. Imagine the little dot between hours and minutes on your digital watch. A single period you make with a pen at the end of a sentence. That's the size of things you're looking for. So you want to get your face right down in there and close. Got a pair of tweezers now, and you're just going to go methodically through the whole thing, starting at one end, sifting through the sediment, pushing it all to the side, and every time you see something, you're going to pull it out and stick it in that bottle. Then sort a little more, sort a little more. And this can take anywhere from 20 minutes to 2 hours of lying on the granite, staring at mud. Everybody's in the bottle, pour the mud in the lake, stretch, have a snack, move on. Okay, so now it's time to take the algae survey. So the goal here is to try to get a random selection of algae that grow in the lake. By sampling enough random points, we can capture all the species of algae that are in the lake. So the way we do that is you want to come up with random numbers first. And these random numbers are distances between points around the shoreline of the lake. So we'll start at the outlet and then walk those distances that we come up with. So you can use your stopwatch. And this is a nifty trick I learned from a statistics book. Just go to the chronograph, also known as the stopwatch, and just hit start and stop a bunch of times, and use the milliseconds basically as a random number generator. Apart from Colin, who apparently used to practice getting them to 0, for most people this is going to end up being a random number generator. So you then use these random numbers and start at the outlet of the lake and walk the first random number, take your algae survey, walk the second random number, take the second sample, and so on. So what's in an individual sample? Well, when you get to one of these random points, you look at the bottom and say, what kind of substrate's here? Well, let's say I've got mostly rock, but there's a little bit of sand here too. So I'm going to take 2 samples off rock and 1 off sand. And you're going to grab those 2 syringes, the big one with the rotating inner plunger with the toothbrush on the end, and then you're going to stick that onto the substrate, rotate that inner plunger several times until you stir up a bunch of muck and hopefully strip the diatoms and the algae off the rocks. Then you're going to attach the smaller syringe to the tube and remove 20 milliliters of fluid. That's going to suck up a bunch of algae and a bunch of diatoms. And then you're going to repeat that on another rock and then on the sand at this point. Then you're going to pour them all into a bottle. Sometimes I use my Nalgene bottle, my drinking water bottle. That's good if you're trying to keep things light and you don't want to carry too much equipment, but it's not good because the flavor definitely stays there. And also, if you remember last week's podcast, if you get confused or forgetful, and take a swig of it, then you're drinking sample. I can't actually think of anything scientifically wrong with that, but it tastes pretty foul. You're just drinking mud. And you haven't done that since you were 4. So why start now? You've got those 3 points, or those 3 samples taken from those 3 points at that one location. You're going to move to the next location, take 3 more, and so on, until you've got 30 samples collected in your bottle. Now we're going to mix it up, shake the crap out of it, swish, 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 swish. You've got it all shaken up. Grab your small syringe, stick it in there, and take 20 milliliters out. So out of all this that you sampled, we've now mixed it all up completely. Hopefully everybody is evenly distributed in there, all the different species, and you're going to sample it and save a very small amount of it. Because these things are tiny. So having a whole half liter of it doesn't really do you much good. You're looking at diatoms and algae that are on the scale of, 10 microns, 50 microns, which I don't even know what 10 to the minus something of a meter that is, but it's tiny. And then you have to go through the slightly scary process of adding formalin. And this is really where you want to make sure you're absolutely not drinking sample anymore. So that's our survey for the most part. We've got the algae survey and previously the invert survey. And that's sort of the rundown of all the bits and pieces that go into it. So now you probably write some more stuff down in your notebook about what you found, observations you made, things you saw swimming in the lake that you didn't get in the survey, etc. Algae you saw growing in the lake. Probably eat another snack, put your sneakers on, and get psyched to do some hiking.